So much. We are here, Finance Committee, on May 19th, 2025. With me today, I have Jim Richardson. Why did I forget your last name? Richards. I'm adding some words to his names. Sarah Sadowski, Terry Wolf. Barb Higgins is our special guest this evening with a beautiful chicken. Superintendent Kathleen Murphy and the incredible Jack Dunn. So with that, I will call the meeting to order and pass this over to Jack.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to try to accomplish 3 items in 30 minutes,
Yeah.
okay?
You got this.
So there's the list of members. We're going to hit 3 things. Any FY25 adjustments we'll be proposing, including food service. We'll also review a middle school transfer that we're going to need to make from the Facilities and RenovationTrust Fund. And in addition, we're going to be talking about the intent to reimburse, which I've handed out copies of that. And then the electric bus infrastructure funding and specific multiple components to that. There's the funding of the bus, which is a grant, and then there's the funding of the infrastructure that has to be put in, as well as the equipment to charge the bus. So I'll hit those 3. So first, I'll start off with the handout that you get in your monthly board book. I handed out in front of you. This is just as of this morning where things stand. This will start to become clearer over the next probably 2 to 3 weeks because we'll have a payroll this week, and then I think there's 2 more, and then we have the balloon checks. I don't think it's a 3-pay period month next month, but I think there's only July. 2. July is a 3. So there'll be 2, and then we'll have the balloon checks, and then we'll get it where it is. But if we go to the page 3 of 8, we'll continue to look at student services, 632,300, professional services for pupils. That's at $1 million over, and that's again for services as it relates to students with special needs. Then we go down into the repairs and maintenance at the 149,641. That is starting on the buildings. And then if I go to page 4 of 8, we're at almost $2 million in transportation for foster, homeless, and special education. So you see that encumbrance column of $964,000. I know 700-some thousand was just added to that number. It's reflective in this number, just to get us through the end of the year. So, we are working on a plan to take care of that. You have money planned for next year. Obviously, there's a negotiations involved, and we'll update the negotiations committee on Wednesday on that. And then if you go down a little bit further on page 4 of 8, the tuition for private and other schools, that's the out-of-district placements for special needs. That's over by $800,000. If we go through the rest of it, a little bit in electricity and natural gas, but I think we'll be able to move money around. That won't be as bad, and you do have an energy trust fund if we had to. The last quote I did get for electric, which I held off, dropped it about 2 cents, and the natural gas about 3. But me and the consultant who advises us, Bo, St. Paul's, and the city, with that consultant, we've decided to hold off at the moment because both of those are up in November and December. So we're going to try to get a little bit further along in the process and see. Because when they give it to me, I got to tell them by 2 o'clock that I'm good to go. So after 2, they got to do a refresh again. It's amazing. And then if I go through down into the revenue, there's nothing. Well, let me back up. Sorry, on page 6 of 8 up at the top, you will see the year-to-date projected as it relates to transfers to expendable trust funds. So as you can see, there's some money that as it relates to the capital reserve. So remember the money that comes in for the voc capital reserve, 693,026. That's money that's collected from the sending schools. It just comes in and goes out, and we only transfer in what we collect. So right now we're at 191,000 of the 237 that we estimated.
Okay.
So that'll just be an up to amount. We can only guess based on enrollment what that's going to be. But it has no adverse effect on the tax rate because there's revenue that comes in that offsets that. If we go down into the revenues, you will see in the third line down tuition. That is for Project Search. We're starting to look at that and say, okay, where is that money coming in to make that up, or are we going to fall short? So what happens is when a kid turns 21, then they get turned over to an outside organization for funding, because it comes from Medicaid funding. So what transition has that been billed? Has that all been done? So we have to speak with the student services on that one.
And Jack,
yeah.
you've always said it's also dependent on enrollment, right?
Yeah.
So the enrollment this year was lower than we anticipated, but we also know that from what John told me, we have anticipated 10 youngsters for next year. So there is a little bit of this, roller coaster ride when we're trying to figure that number out for Project Search. It's a hard one to really nail down.
If we go down a little, just hitting some of the key lines, when you see in 513-200 tuition from LEAs and state, that is the special ed tuition for Deerfield, and the next line is the regular education line for Deerfield. So as of right now, it looks like one of the 3 billings have been done for that, so we need to get those billings over to them. And then you go down into the VOC tuition. You see that's $400,000 more than we had budgeted. Again, this is all looking in arrears, so it's a year behind. So that's pretty good. If I move down, anything else? Let's see. Nothing else that's jumping out at the moment. The facility rentals might fall a little short this year, and we lowered that in the budget for next year. If I get into the state revenue, you can see that the equitable grant fell $14,000 short than what they had told us. So again, that's a pocket of money. It's dispersed, and it's going to be 14 short. So that's a state on to us. And then when you look at the equitable education tax that's collected, again, locally by the state and given to us, we have not received our last payment yet for that. And then you can see we have not received, I don't believe, the final piece from the state for our VOC tuition aid. So that's why you see the negative $537,000 there. We're waiting for that. It looks like the special education aid will fall short. And it looks like we'll get a little bit more in the VOC differential aid. And notice that 191 should match the 191,906 matches the expense above, which was the transfer to the VOC. So that's where that comes from. Okay. The other key piece is the Medicaid. So you can see we've pulled in 271 out of 650 that has been budgeted. So we will see where that funding is. You can go back up to 12 months. So we have to find out where they're at in their submittals of that for that revenue. And then if we go into the next section, these are all the transfers. You'll notice the original budget, year to date, what we have actually transferred. We usually wait till the very end to do that, because when you propose your transfers, we do them as an up to amount. If in the end there's enough savings in other lines and we don't need to take it out of the trust funds, we don't. So that's where that sits at the moment. But that's just to give you an update of where things stand at T-minus 40-some days and counting till June 30th. Okay? I'm going to move on to food service if I can. So in October, then they notified our food service director about our commodities, and that price went from $3.50 to $7 for what they call the brown box. So that's everything that's sitting in the freezer. And then the DoD Fresh, this was something new. We've had it. They never charged a fee. They're now charging a fee. So I'm just showing you what that amount went from and to. Unfortunately for the DoD Fresh in the budget next year, we did not budget that. No. So that will be coming to you to fix in October. Okay? And as you know, there's already an operational deficit for the food service program. So we'll
Jack,
get
what
what that
is-
amount is.
Can you remind me, what does DOD stand for?
My initial thing is to say Department of Defense, but
That's what I'm like. I can't
it
be
seems odd.
Okay.
I'll get what that is because I can't recall
I
what
can
that
Google
was.
that
Usually
later.
it's
No
USDA,
worries.
so I don't know why they're calling it that, but I'll find out.
No, I can Google that. No worries.
All right. So now this is the meal debt, and I handed out your policy as it relates to the meal charging policy. So now we're at 108,000. As you can see, 100 of that 108 is for those in a paid status. So we had only proposed bringing in 55,000 into the general fund to cover any shortages. So that's going to be something else unless we get that collected, which we'll begin in earnest now working on. And I'll tell you what we currently do now to get that collected. All right. But if not, you're going to see we're going to propose the third week of June having a meeting to make these adjustments. Okay.
Yeah.
So notifications about the student, the meal debt. Weekly notifications go out from Link, which is the program, and those notifications go to the head of household and the alternative head of household in case you have split households. This system is all fed by our student information system, so it's not in isolation where the food service program has its own software, and then there's our own software that manages the students and parents on our side. It's all one system. If they don't have an email on file, the system automatically prints a letter and then it's mailed to the head of household and the alternative head of household, so they get it through the mail. Phone calls begin going out if there's large balances over 300, and then the website or app, you can also log in, see, and pay, and see the history of your purchases, okay? As far as how to pay, they can go on to the Link Connect website. They can pay through the website, pay through the app. They can come here and give us a check or cash, and then there's no fee associated with that. Or they can pay at the school. There is not an availability to pay by phone where they can call us up and then we can go into their account for them. We actually, with this program, we do not even have the ability to see whether a parent has an account set up in the web side of it, unfortunately. I wish we did, but as we've migrated through these different software programs, as I've got gobbled up, you gain something good and you lose something good. So in here, your policy 326 talks about unresolved debt and what that process is. So it kind of weaves through a process. So we'll be coming back to you in that third week of June, depending on where this stands. But I'm also trying to get some guidance from the attorney on where you can go with this. I'm just afraid this might be your new norm.
Yeah.
So.
Do you happen to remember where we were at last year with the
I think we're almost 91,000.
91,000?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not too far off from
Yes.
last
What are we
year.
now, or do we not?
108.
108,
100,000 is just in paid status.
yeah.
So, you can manage the free and reduced, and it comes from kids going up getting a 50-cent milk, and there is those conversations that happen. I did ask about second meals, and there is not many of them at all, as they don't allow them to come up and get them. If they have a debt, forget it. But they always try to do a reimbursable meal at a minimum because we do feed them.
And just one more question. Anecdotally, those, because I see the ones who are over $300 due, is there usually a theme, like similar situations, or just people forgot? All different stories as to why they would get that high?
All different kinds of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think sometimes, I gotta be honest, I think sometimes it can get confusing. You read the paper and they talk about a free breakfast. As a board, you've talked about offering free meals. What do people believe?
Right.
And that becomes the challenge.
Right.
But this cannot be negative July 1.
Right. Yeah.
So we have to satisfy it. So just a summary on the budget
Josh.
side,
I
go
was gonna
ahead.
say,
Yeah.
it cannot be negative, but we can still continue to collect through
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll be coming to you to do a transfer from the general fund to the food service fund. Then that'll come over to the general fund side and we'll try to collect it there, which is what your policy says to do as of right now.
But just for, informational thing, it doesn't go away. You still have that debt.
Yeah.
It's just, we move it from a
Yeah,
different
and at some
accounting
point
thing
you
to
get to the
another.
point where, you don't keep carrying it, you don't collect it. There's no recourse in your policy to go after that. Doesn't appear anyway.
We used to lose all that data. That doesn't get lost now?
So what means it gets lost, it doesn't stay in the food service software.
But I remember we had a
have to clear it
discussion
out.
once, and one of our board members was like, look, I didn't know I had a balance, and I went
Yeah.
to pay it, and it's gone now.
Yeah.
So,
We have to send letters from here. There's nowhere to see it online.
Okay.
Because we've asked, even in this software, is there a way to separate it and say, hey, move it into a different cart? They don't give you the ability.
so that, yeah. I think sometimes you have a lot of things with food. You have embarrassment. You have kids who get a free lunch, but their friends with their money on their cards get to buy all the snacks and extras. So they get those because they want to fit in. So now the parents
Sure.
don't know that they're being bought. And then you have maybe parents not knowing that they carry a debt. Like, there's so much that goes into it. But,
Yeah, the only place we try to control that is the high school.
Right.
If the
Yeah.
parent hasn't satisfied the debt, kids use their own debit card to get their snacks.
right.
So they may not pay for as many friends, but
Right,
maybe they do.
Yeah, it's just.
My kid would.
So, yeah, I
My
know.
oldest would. My middle boy, he'd be piggybacking on somebody else. Smart like that.
Yeah, okay.
And the money that she takes in via the snacks is considerable. So you can't say, well, you can't use your debit card to buy snacks because you have a debt. Because if I start doing that, then I've reduced her ability to gain, was 21,000 was the last number I saw, and that was back in March.
Yeah.
So it's grown since then.
Yeah.
At the high school particularly.
Yeah.
It's like a catch-22.
Right, yeah, it's tricky.
It is tricky.
Okay.
Thank you, Jack.
All right. So let me just real quickly, as it relates to this topic, just a summary. So you're going to see about the electric chargers. We may be looking at potentially increasing the appropriation by $200,000 to cover the installation of electric chargers, and I'll show you that shortly. Potential transfer from expendable trust funds to cover any overages using funds from the Special Education Trust Fund or the School Building Maintenance Fund. Because remember, I highlighted those two. If in fact we don't hit the 2.8 million that we need to carry over, you have two options. You can either cut next year and bring that number down. You can move money out of your trust funds, or you increase taxes. They're the three options. So, and then we'll be looking at increasing the transfer from the general fund to cover the food service outstanding balance. And then for the food service fund, we're gonna need to increase the appropriations for expenditures. The good part about that, because as of right today, they're 62,000 over what was approved. Now, part of that has to do with what's called the spend down plan. So when there was a lot of money left over from COVID, we had you may remember this, about 2 years ago, there was almost $1.1 million in the account balance. It's never been that high. And because during COVID, everything was free. Made a lot of money. But what they did is they restricted on what you could do with that money. You've never and ever been able to use that kind of money to pay off student debt. That you've never been able to do. But they said you can go out and upgrade your equipment, but you had a time in which you had to spend it. You can't just leave it out there and then do what you want. You could also leave up to a quarter of your annual expenses held back and help fund the program. So we did that, and part of that is why that's over. We didn't account for those funds, and all we're doing is to come back to you and account for those funds. Right now, it has a fund balance of $530,000. So it's gonna more than cover that 62. So it's just gonna be the unassigned fund balance covering the appropriation, which we're required to do. That's all. So I'm not going taxes or anything like that. Student debt, yeah, that has to be satisfied. And then any transfer, then we have to do a transfer from, of the fund from the Facilities and RenovationTrust Fund to cover expenses for the new middle school project, which is my next agenda item, okay? And what we're gonna be proposing to you in these motions is for to post a meeting for the third week of June, special board meeting. Public meeting, you'll get public comment and everything, but it gives sufficient time if we're gonna change your appropriation, it meets your charter, everything, to take care of the 25 budget. But and we can do all this without adjusting the tax rate or doing anything. It's just getting everything right for close out June 30 and then start for the new year. So there's my first proposed motion for you to satisfy what we just talked about.
Do we need something to do it?
I would move that the Finance Committee recommend that the Concord Board of Education post a meeting for the third week in June to discuss and adjust any potential charges, or changes rather, to the current FY25 budget. And that meeting would have a public comment period.
Yep.
So,
And we'll put it in the paper and do everything we do like a normal budget process.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
aye.
All opposed? Any discussion? Oh, any abstained? All right.
All right, I'll
Passes.
move on to the second item. What do I have? 6 minutes?
You got this.
Okay, middle school
Great.
transfer and authorization to reimburse. So, your expendable trust fund balance as of June 30 is projected to have 17.157 million. We need to move money out of there to satisfy the expenses that have been made over the last site and now so far what we've began expending on this site. That amount is 3.663 million. You see the amount there. So that will leave you a fund balance of 13.494 million. So we will also set up for you to take that vote on that June meeting. But I just wanted you to be aware that that's what it is. And we'll have all the detail that makes up that number. We've posted that. We had right to know for it. You posted it. And we're just continuing to add on to that number because it's cash that we do have. And as we've been advised by our financial people, if you have the cash and the intent to reimburse, it's worth using that if you don't have to pay interest on it and go as far as you possibly can. We'll go as far as we can, but that money, about 3.3, early estimate, 3.3 of that 3.6 is for the broken ground site.
Okay.
And I'm working with bond counsel and the architects to try to declare, can any of that be recovered? Because obviously we're not redoing the entire building. And you'll see June 5th, maybe earlier, it's June 5th, right? The building committee, they've reused that design, but they have to adjust it to that site. So getting the appropriate letters in HMFH has been great. Working with them to say, hey, 75% of the schematic design that was done can be reused. So I could start pushing those out, get sign off from bond counsel to say, all right, I'll be able to, when we do our bond, reimburse ourselves for that. But some of it we will not get, like the survey that was paid for there, I think it was 70-some thousand.
That's site specific.
Yeah, site-specific stuff, that's
Right.
spent. You're not gonna receive that back. So, all right, but, I think I did put,
motion.
then I'll do the next thing before the motion. So in front of you, I gave you two documents. One is from the May 6th board meeting last May. It has a 107 in the top right. That's the original document that your president signed last year that we gave to them of our intent to reimburse for the expenses going forward, for broken ground site. So I'm waiting for bond counsel to tell me what I got to do with this, if anything. And the next document behind it is a revised one that I'm waiting for them to approve that will ask to be passed that third week of June so that you can reimburse yourselves for those expenses for the South Street site. Because without this in place and I go to bond and say I want to do that, they'll never authorize that. So that's why I want to do that, because I think we want to try to get as much of that money back as we can, because it's not something that should be paid for today. It'll be over the life of that building. But that's an updated, but that's
Thank you,
what we're
Jack.
hoping to do. And then, yeah, so there's the proposed motion for number 2.
May I have,
Sure.
you're it, Jen.
Okay, absolutely. I move that the Finance Committee recommend that the Concord Board of Education post a meeting for the third week in June to approve the intent to reimburse for the current middle school site located at 144 South Street and authorize the transfer of funds from the Facilities and Renovation Trust Fund, expendable trust fund to cover expenditures for the new middle school project.
You're the only one here to second.
Even though I'm just,
It's okay, take your time.
yeah, I second that.
Okay. If you have questions, it's okay.
No, I resolved my question.
Okay, no worries. All right.
Appreciate
All
you.
in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Okay.
Okay.
Passes.
Finally, electric bus infrastructure. So this is an aerial of the COMF, which is the Common Operations Maintenance Facility that's owned by the city. The school district rents this part here where this little, I don't know, dormer is, this whole right side, all along here. And then it has all this for parking for the buses, and then this is for staff parking here. The transformer for it is right, if you can see my mouse, is right there. That's where the transformer is, and we have to get it over to this area. I think it's like 424 feet or something. So the cost to do that infrastructure, is up to $200,000. I have a quote right now for $195, but we're working through that. We've actually got two different proposals. And the infrastructure that's going to be put in is 5-inch PVC conduit as well as internet out to those. Because in the proposal, they give me 4G wireless cards and a subscription in order for it to send the data. Well, if I'm already digging up the ground, I'd rather put an internet and then have that annual expense of the internet that we already have there. So I'm working through those pieces, but that's the infrastructure piece that has to happen. So again, that's something we'll have to pick up the expense. That won't be federal funds, so I don't get into some of the pieces that go along with that. The buses, which we got a grant for $1,035,000. The buses came in at $1,032,000. So we are told that money is coming. We got clarification, I think, when was I? Today's Monday. That was last week when I was away. So we're waiting any day for that money to show up, and when it does, we will send that out to the vendor who we've already ordered the bus. My understanding from the vendor is that the orders have been placed, production is supposed to start in October, and we could see the buses in December. Okay? Winter's a great time to get an electric bus, I am sure. So, but we'll take it, right?
Yeah.
The extra $3,000 that was spent, we bought cement vaults that are going to go right outside, because we try to use every dime, right outside of the transformer, and that's where the electrical all feeds into. Because there's going to be two transformers. There's that one, and then there's going to be one put closer to the feed. The other thing we did, which was allowable, well, it's irrelevant because we're not using federal funds for this part, but if we were, we're putting enough to be able to put up to 10 chargers in. So we
nice.
future-proofed this as well.
Okay.
But right now, we're gonna have two chargers that are 60 kilowatts, and I'll show you the picture of them. But this is the work that they're doing. These vaults, what I was talking about, that's what we had already bought because we wanted to use the money. And then this kind of all the piece, I just tried to sum it up. It's a 2-page work order of things that are gonna be done. But yeah, we did ask for Cat 5, and I've been working with one of the city officials, Jay Burgess, who's fantastic. And while they're tearing that up, if there's anything that they see along that way, should we diverge and go to their building for anything, let's make sense and, future-proof it, because they're planning to do some paving and renovations to that building, because nothing's really been done since it was built in '89. It doesn't look it when you get up there. The roof maybe is a little different, but anyway.
Right.
But they've been great.
So Jack, first, we did not spend that money because we wanted to spend every bit of it. We needed those electric vaults, correct?
Oh, yeah, it's
Yes.
part of the electricity.
Just to be
spectrum.
clear,
Yeah.
because for people listening at home, it's not like we just spent money for the sake of spending it. We spent the money on something that we absolutely needed but could be applied to this particular grant.
Well, and it should be clear, everything that I committed to, I'm able to back out of, because it was all conditional. If we didn't get the money, none of this was happening. But we put a purchase order for $3,000 and a purchase order for $1,032,000 on the condition that if they went through. And it was just 2 weeks ago that they asked for signed POs from the vendors. So it's we sent, they list 3 things, and now we're told it's coming anytime. So we're pretty confident it's getting there, but the money's gonna come in and go right out. We'll never have spent a dime of district money. It's just gonna come in and go out.
Also, so in addition to the Cat 6 and
Yeah.
electrical lines going through that conduit, I assume we'll also put several leads that we can pull other things through that conduit later on if we want to as well, just running the light.
That is what they've told me, because there's 2 5-inch PVCs going down there.
Yeah, just want to make sure that we're thinking about future items. And then the last question I have is, why are we going 400 feet? If we and the city share this and we may need, I would expect we would need to go increase our fleets of electric vehicles in the future. Is there a way we could make that shorter by swapping spaces with the city? Have you pursued that? You know, there's that whole,
Yeah.
you know, if I'm looking at the top of this photo, can't we go closer to the top of that photo and get over to closer to that corner? Or can we rearrange parking for, you know, visitors and staff to get closer to that so that we wouldn't have to spend 200,000? Now, by rearranging parking, we could exceed 200,000 and that wouldn't make sense. But have we explored other options to minimize the cost?
Yes. Yep,
Can
including.
you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, oh
So
yeah.
just to be sure.
So part of these buildings are all outfitted. These are all outfitted for city buildings.
Okay.
I don't believe we can get a bus in there because of its height.
Mm-hmm.
These are the high bays right here. So this is what is in our 10-year lease. This is outfitted to us, and all of this here, except that is not a bus barn. That's the sand barn, which causes some challenges for our director. Hence why you have the bus. But we
about
looked at doing
very
2
top?
things, putting it here, because what happens if you run it from here and try to get over to here, you're worried about degradation. So they need to put the transformer. They are putting a bigger pile, what do they call it? The cement thing that it sits on.
Foundation
So
or
yeah,
pad?
if in fact
Pad.
because likely we will have a problem with transformers. If 3 buses would probably be okay. We go to 10 buses, that'd be a problem. So we're gonna put enough in for the 3, but if we exchange out and go to 10, they just exchange out the transformer and we don't have to redo that work. But in trying to look at where could you put the buses, they use every bit of this. And
I was
there's
just
no way
wondering if we could work with
swap.
them on that top part.
Oh, trying to swap out and put stuff
Swap
here?
out some space, say the space
Yeah.
for 10 buses?
Yeah, well,
Have we pursued that or at least explored that?
we talked about it, and the inefficiencies of having certain bus drivers to go over to get those buses versus coming back to over this buses, which already has some workers' comp claims as it relates to slippage because of ice, is a challenge. And there's trucks, once the snow comes, they're going and coming and going and coming and going.
Okay, so if there's a safety issue, that would far exceed the
Yeah.
200,000 we're spending as a potential claim. So I understand that. I just wanted to make sure that we explored.
And they're open on
ways
the
of
weekends,
minimizing this
we're
cost.
not. So you would just have this intermix, and we're worried about damage to the buses, various things. So it just didn't make any sense to do any type of swap or
Okay.
split the fleet.
And-
Because they're also gonna be doing electrical projects up here.
Okay, and it wouldn't pan out to move the transformer closer to the other corner of the building?
You're talking about here?
Yeah, somewhere there or at the corner of the high building that we have, the one, that
Right
dormant
here?
building right there, somewhere in there, yes. Would it make any sense to do that? And have we looked at that?
No, because then once you get to here, then you gotta trench over to here or here.
But
Because
that's a shorter trench, so I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
you checked into the cost effectiveness of that as opposed to the.
If we had more time, I'd tell you some stuff non-public as it relates to that, but we've looked into
Okay.
everything.
All right, I just
it's
want
sensitive
to,
at
I
the
just want
moment.
to feel comfortable in having done my due diligence that we've explored other less expensive or potentially less expensive options to evaluate whether it's worthwhile.
So I will tell you this, point 1 where we were gonna put it versus point 2, there's a $40,000 difference.
Okay.
But we weighed that difference is not worth the effort of trying to accommodate it.
Okay, I mean, I understand that, changing that location and any location comes with architectural work and engineering work and all the other things that can be fairly costly. I just wanted to make sure that we considered all of those things. And if you tell me we have, then I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question. Where are we in the 10-year lease?
Year two? Yeah. So I have in here that we're going to be revising that.
Excellent.
All right. So when I look at the now the equipment, now you have a separate component, which are the actual chargers themselves. So this was recommended by the bus provider, where we buy them through the distributor, as well as the bus vendor that sells the bus. So this is why I put in that SIM card with the 4G data. I've accounted for that. I'm hoping that I can back that out, but I wanted you to just have the full effect of this. So all in are $21,910 each. We're getting two of them. So it'll be about $43,820. Our quote is from December 18th, so I'm going to get a refreshed quote because I didn't want to bother until I knew for sure that this thing was going to be a go. But the plan is to pay for this out of insurance proceeds. So there was a bus accident where our bus was sideswiped, well, not sideswiped, T-boned, that's it. And we got about $60,000 to $62,000 for the bus. So I've put that in miscellaneous funds, and my plan is for you to appropriate that money to pay for the two chargers rather than replace it with a diesel bus, which would be about $127 for a new diesel bus. But I figure that's a better use of the money than to.
So we don't need that bus, or we will replace it with one of these electrics?
Yeah, we're replacing it with one of the electrics.
Thank
Plus, we just bought 10 brand new ones,
Thank
with
you.
your bond. So
I just wanted to know why we weren't replacing that bus, but if we have the bus coming in on this electric program, then that's fine.
Did that one go off a little earlier in the schedule than it was planned? Yeah, but when you're getting
Okay.
3 electric buses, it doesn't make any sense for us to go out and get more. And hopefully this works. And I think it's a good way to use that money to,
Yeah.
offset any impact that there might be.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I don't want
Yeah.
you buying a bus that we don't need.
Nope.
So, thank
We
you.
all agreed on it and thought, yep, we propose to you. So that's what they look like. And again, they have they're dualies. The individual 30 kilowatt, which was proposed by, when we were talking about looking at a vendor that would manage and do all this for us, they had originally come to the 30 kilowatt chargers. And our concern was, when you get into the winter, you could be looking at 70, 80 miles out of a bus. Their benchmark, according to the specs, I think it's 149. I don't anticipate we'll get that out of it. But you get to the winter, if they want to come back and charge up, the 30 kilowatts are not going to be as good as the 60.
Right.
And then we also put, they'll pull the buses and it's got like dual pumps almost. So we felt going with 2 of these rather than 3 individual 30 kilowatts better. And we're weighing the downside versus if that unit's down, both are down, that kind of thing. But we feel this is better from an efficiency standpoint. So
Jack, is this charger capable, is this only going to work with the buses, or can we use it if down the road we get smaller buses that are electric, would this same equipment be applicable?
So I have to ask, these are CCS chargers, and I don't know what the difference is between CCS, I think it is, versus the North American Charging Standard, NACS, which is what Tesla came out with, and that's the industry standard for that. But that's a car charger. I don't know what the charger is for this size, whether that is or whether there's an adapter, I don't know. I've sent this information to the city because they're looking at it, and the vendor they're looking with, they just have a lot of questions at the moment. So the gentleman and I have been working on this project. I sent him this because we're trying to figure out, like our fuel farm, does it make sense with RFIDs to go up, be able to charge the bus and track it? Because this is also going to be separately metered, and that's going to be in the lease agreement because we need to be able to monitor what the electric is. So, that's just.
How long does it take to charge a bus?
So with a 60 kilowatt,
Yeah.
we're expecting to go from 0 to full about 4 hours with this.
So
So if
you
it
could-
goes a 20, 30-mile run, it should be about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
So depending on who's using this and when we're using it, you could do up to 6 vehicles in a 24-hour period? Theoretically,
Well, you'll do 4.
4?
Yeah, because this is only 4 chargers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, like 4 hours, then bring the next one in, do 4 hours. So if the city wanted to go looking into some of their electrical items, we could maybe let them pay for a portion of it and let them use our charges, theoretically.
Sure.
I'm just looking
Yeah.
at ways of how we can get the most efficiency out of our investment here.
And, and I'll have that
I
conversation
would talk
with
to the
them.
city about
If-
it because we're gonna be charging probably at a certain time based on bus timing and usage. You know, we need it first thing in the morning, but we don't need it after 4 o'clock in a lot of cases. And maybe they are looking at something that they would charge at a different time. So I'm just trying to make sure we're gonna be as efficient as we can with our equipment and get the best use out of it.
And I think that they're looking at more lower weight vehicles, 'cause I don't think they have the dump trucks and all that stuff out yet. I think it's just
No.
more of the little thing with the strobe that runs around and pings your water meter. I think stuff like that.
Yeah, I just
So,
am curious.
you know, is this too much for that? I mean, I know this is only 60 kilowatt. I know when I take my car, it's 250 kilowatt,
Yeah.
but it's dumbed down to have the NACS adapter and everything. I don't know how this regulates between that type of battery.
And I don't
So we'll
expect
figure
you-
all that out.
I don't
but-
expect you to, but I would
But no, it's a
just
good
look
point.
at cooperating with the city to make
Yep.
the most efficient use of equipment. And if they can help share some of the cost, well, you know, it's the same taxpayer.
Yeah.
So I'd like to be able to do as effective and as efficient a job as we can.
I think the other good thing is they can try it and then determine whether these are the ones they want to use. Because we're all new to this going into it. I mean, I don't know if they have any electric vehicles in their fleet now. My understanding is they don't.
But they have some pretty big commitments with regards to, you know, energy and
Oh, yeah.
sustainability.
Correct.
And so I think we should be working with
Yep.
them on that.
Yep, yeah. I'll talk to them about that. Meet with them on Thursday. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair, for indulging my question.
Okay.
No, it's wonderful. I learned a lot about it.
Sorry I'm running a little late, but there's my proposed motion for you to end this final one if you're,
Sarah, would you mind doing
Comfortable.
the honors for this one?
Well, so you said there's 2 years left on the city lease.
no, we're
The
in
lease-
year 2 of 10.
We're in
10.
year 2 of 10. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, I motion that the finance committee recommend that the Board of Education raise and appropriate an amount up to 200,000 from the school maintenance building fund, the school building maintenance fund to fund the installation of electric school bus chargers at the common operations maintenance facility owned by the city. This committee also directs the administration to work with the city to make any necessary changes to the current 10-year lease.
And I second that.
Thank you.
I just lost my train of thought. Anybody opposed? We'll go backwards.
Well, first of all, you should ask if anybody should vote, you know, in favor.
Well, yeah, I just lost my train of thought. So, anybody in favor? Who's in favor? Oh my gosh, thank you. Any opposed? No. Any abstain? Motion passes.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
All right, I call, wait, do I need a motion to close or no?
Move to adjourn.
Seconded.
Are we on approval?
Yes,
Okay, I'm passing it.
we're done. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the May 15th meeting of the Concord School Board's City and Community Relations Committee. We have a very short meeting tonight, primarily some chit-chat around market days, and I'm going to go over a little bit the Concord Recreation and Parks Advisory Committee meeting. So I'm the school board rep on that. And the way things are going in our city right now, with middle schools needing to be built and fields need to be replaced and drainage needing to be fixed, the school board and the city have often, I didn't even do attendance or anything like that.
You gotta call the meeting to order.
never too late.
Yeah, in time.
See, you worry about yourself being
I
chair?
didn't even
Okay,
notice,
all right.
yeah.
So I would like to call the meeting to order. So in attendance tonight are committee members Liz Boucher, Sarah Sadowski, and Jess Campbell, and me as chair. Okay. And
I'm
you
just
write
doing
down.
notes.
Gotcha. Terry is here, as is Superintendent Murphy. So, as I started to say before I called the meeting to order, being on the Recreation Committee has been eye-opening for me, and I've lived here my whole life, for the most part. Historically speaking, the school district and the city, are parallel players. You know, we're both dealing with kids, but we work parallel to one another, not necessarily interacting. It's been very, very separate forever and always. And we're to a point now where it's impossible to separate the two entities anymore. So I've been paying a bit closer attention in these meetings, rather than just sort of sitting and listening to what are they doing, and then coming back and what are we doing. Really listening with a school district ear as to how and when it makes sense for us to step in and be a bigger part of the conversation, not necessarily money and budget, but just a part of the conversation, compared to how it's been, which is more, you tell me what you're doing and I'll tell you what I'm doing, and then we go on our merry way. So a couple of things came up that stood out to me, that reminded me that our city members that aren't necessarily school board members face the very same things we do. So here we have a committee with a citizen from every single ward. So all wards represented, school board represented, city council represented, and they make suggestions to city council. That's kind of the purpose of this committee. And 2 of the last 3 suggestions they've made, the city council has just disregarded them and sort of done what they wanted. So the 2 that are most recent are Healy Park cleanup.
I'm sorry, what?
Healy Park, Healy, and lights at Keach Park. So I'll start with Healy Park first. So most people don't even know it's a park. It's underwater sometimes in the spring because it's right along the river. So if you're driving into Concord from the south on 93 and you come to exit 13, so over on your left you're looking at Hall Street and the CVS and the Common Man Restaurant, and on the right is the river. If you were to get off the highway there and stop at the light, and here's Manchester Street, and look across toward the river, there's a strip of land which is called Healy Park. And it is a mecca for our homeless population right now. I mean, hardcore structures, tent cities, so the RPAC, because it's a city park, right? It falls under Parks and Rec. It's the responsibility of, the same guy that rents me the field for track camp. You don't think about that. And it's been a long process. There was a big citizen cleanup led by a city council member from Ward 7, I believe. But they went down there to clean up and realized how unsafe it was. A lot of those homeless folks are weaponized and defensive and afraid of. So it's been this ongoing property. And so RPAC had made a suggestion that could the city council look into the safety issues and Department of Safety, and that to get that park sort of cleaned up and taken care of. And it's just been tabled and tabled and tabled. So that was disheartening for the committee. And I think about these people giving up a couple hours a month of their lives to talk about this. And it reminds me of the many, many meetings we have where we feel like we work for hours and then either nothing happens or no one listens or we're voted against or whatever it is. It stood out to me that I didn't even think about Healy Park when I think about parks. And it's one of our parks that we can't take a walk in right now because it's unusable. So that was one. The other one was Keach Park. So this has been an issue for a long time, wanting, in terms of our parks being equitable playing areas for our youth, and, White's Park has lights, and Rollins Park has lights, and so Keach Park should have lights. And so there's been lots and lots and lots of conversations around it. This committee, the RPAC committee, decided that the layout of the park and where the lights would be placed didn't make sense. That lighting up a field that's only for use for 10 and under, it's the youth field, that it made sense to hold off and take a bigger look at the uses of the park and the rental of the fields and what other fields might be being built, and maybe that money makes more sense to light up a field somewhere else. And the city council voted to put lights at Keach Park. So the field that will be lit is a field that is not rented for, it's a youth field. So, most fifth graders are home in bed by 8 o'clock at night. So having a field all lit up that is primarily for young kids doesn't make a lot of sense. Then they get into talking about the wear and tear on the grass and how having a field lit up like that is going to invite people to play on it, which is not a bad thing necessarily, but is that the field that we should be lighting up? Because it's going to get considerable amount of play. And so that was a whole long conversation. And I'm only loosely involved in these things. I don't live on the Heights. I don't have kids that play in that park. But it was a long conversation. And then this committee that's, citizen filled made a recommendation, like, we get it. There should be lights at more parks, but maybe this isn't the one. So this is a committee that feels a little discouraged right now. And then, of course, we get into the city and the school and playing fields and soccer fields and private soccer clubs and Little League and all of the massive amounts of people that want beautiful, usable parks. So that's how the meeting started for me. And I'm sharing all this with you because I feel that it would behoove school board members, especially school board members with kids, to attend one of these meetings. Just sit, they go quick, there's public comment. A gentleman came and spoke about the golf course. So then we got talking about city parks. So under city parks are cemeteries. So tot lots, like the corner playgrounds, the big parks, lots of playing field parks, like, not Pony Park, the one at Martin Field and those sorts of things. So it's not just the big parks that we think about. It's also all the little playing fields. Ward 2 in our town is the only ward that doesn't have a park in it. So that got me thinking, like, wait a minute, because I didn't think we had 10 parks, or 9 parks, but if there isn't a major park like Rollins, there's a corner playground like West Street. There's one on Hall Street. There's one, 2 right near McAuliffe School, one by the old post office, Fayette Street, and one on Short Street. So there's all these little tot lots everywhere. So a major goal for the city is to get a cemetery and a park in Ward 2. So that's something that's on the weight of of Parks and Rec and the committee. And then we have Memorial Field, and a skateboard park at Kiwanis, and the arena, and the golf course, right? Are you overwhelmed yet? Because what it said to me is that I really think this committee can be very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? I think we can take a leadership role a little bit in figuring out ways to marry the two communities, this Parks and Rec committee and this committee, not necessarily in an official or formal way, but really communicate more and work together more. Because I feel that, like Jim was just saying with charging the buses, there are so many things that we all use these facilities for and could provide good input for, that just doesn't get said because it's the people that come to the meetings and speak up. Another tidbit that I learned is there's been a big push to get Beaver Meadow to be considered a park, like under Parks and Rec. Right now, Beaver Meadow is its own entity, as is the arena. Even though they're city-owned facilities, the arena isn't a park. So if there was a concert in there and they serve beer, they could serve beer in the arena, right? Because it's not a Parks and Rec park. Same with the golf course. It's its own entity. It has its own budget. It's all separate. And there was a push to get it put under Parks and Rec so that it would then have to follow all those guidelines. And, well, it's a golf course, so it has a restaurant. You can rent events. People get married there. It's, very, very different. So that's a ton of energy back and forth and back and forth. So why am I sharing all this with you? As much as we don't think all these things affect what we do as school board members, they make a huge difference in how taxpayers feel about us, how services get given to kids, the process by which we can have access to fields. Merrimack Valley is playing a much bigger role now, and that representative had a lot to say about field requests. The number of requests from not just us, as in the school district, but soccer, youth soccer leagues and all that on fields in Pennacook because of what's happening, in Concord. So, what I'm going to start to do is when I don't have official minutes from the meeting the other night. It was Thursday, but I'm going to start sharing these in this committee. Every time so that'll be a monthly meeting and I'll share the minutes. And I would encourage, I know you're all busy. It's a Tuesday night meeting. No, a Thursday night meeting. So it's like the third Thursday of the month. I just went last Thursday. Come if you can, and even if you just come once or twice. It was eye-opening for me. It's been eye-opening for me, but it wasn't until we really got diving into the Memorial Field piece that I realized how important it is for us to be on top of all this, because it really can dictate and change what and how we ask for things, what and how we offer. The good thing that came out of it was the Memorial Field discussion, and it wasn't lost on the city that this is the first time in forever that the school district has been a supportive and willing partner in doing over that field. That's always been just given right back to the city, which is frustrating considering 900 gazillion school kids use it on the daily, Memorial Field specifically. And finally, everything is just in a holding pattern. You know, it's like A needs to happen before B, but B can't happen until A is complete. Every single level of all of these projects is around and around like that. So, you know, we're not in a place to make any decisions or really do anything. There's nothing to do right now. I will do my best to ask the important questions and keep the conversation flowing here. But this is, in my mind, this is a very, very good opportunity for the school board to take an active role in some of our public spaces and how we can integrate them into school district stuff. And that's all I have.
Well, my only suggestion, Barb, is that certainly the Parks and Recreation Committee, let's invite them to our committee. You know, so it isn't, I mean, I agree, people going to their meeting is important, but also extend our hand to them.
That's a great
to
idea.
have. And so throw that out. Maybe there's some members that would like to sit in and share some thoughts with this committee.
Yeah, especially on the areas that benefit both.
Sure,
You know, like Martin
sure,
Field and
sure.
the school playgrounds and that sort of stuff. So many, and it's all coming at once. All the playgrounds in the parks are coming up on their warranty ends now, every single playground.
Right.
So nobody wants to hear, you know, it's just.
But that's what happens when there's been a delay for
Yeah.
the reasons that you can get into, you know, whether it was the pandemic or other situations that happened. Economy was poor, that you didn't take the opportunity to fix what needed to be fixed, and
Right.
now it's all coming to a head. And
Yes,
that's a challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
It's no different for us. I mean, we have challenges just like that came to a head.
Right. Well, and that's what kept playing through my mind with every agenda item we went down. That would be our roof at the high school.
Right.
That would be that would be this. And you know, and then you have angry taxpayers who are angry because they're suffering. But then they're also angry that, you know, like my Jack came home with a splinter the size of Texas from the monkey around playground, right? You know, so you have, I get it, so I pulled the splinter out and we moved along, but, you know, you have these situations that make people angry. We want better facilities, and then I don't want to spend the money, and round and round we go.
Right.
So, but it was eye-opening for me. And actually, you know, it was actually a really fun meeting, but meetings are meetings. Everyone has their thoughts and feelings, and it's interesting.
Well, I appreciate you representing the school board, and definitely will attend an art
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah, and I will. I'll extend an invitation to. What would be good for a lot of those people is to come and have us explain what fields and locations are under our purview and how I don't think they always have a clue either as to the number of people that couldn't even picture Healy Park for one, but hadn't, you know, a couple of them haven't really spent any time at Memorial Field. It's like, okay, well, go take a walk. You know, you need to know. So, you know, sometimes I think maybe I'll invite them all to track camp. So, but anyway, it was interesting, and I just feel that with all the money we have to spend coming up and all of the disruptions that Memorial Field and Rutland are going to have on the ability of our kids to play, it's time that we really put our heads together and figure it out.
I agree.
Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Barb. I look
Yeah.
forward to you extending that invitation to
Yeah.
RPAC. And just to be clear to people who are listening, you're speaking about RPAC, a separate committee of the city council, versus the special committee that you and Jim sit on.
Correct, yes, good, thank you. Yeah, so the special committee that I sit on with Jim is just Memorial Field, and it's a very small committee, and it's really looking at what's already been presented. This is a subcommittee set up by the city council that is just Parks and Rec, but it's you know, there's 10 people, they represent each ward. And this much time is spent on playgrounds, and this much time is spent on the hundreds of acres of parkland we have in this community that isn't necessarily directly related to softball or Little League or anything else. It's fascinating. So Yeah, lots of people are dying too. We need more cemetery land sooner than later. So, so there it is.
Our aging population. is
Yeah,
increasing.
yeah, I guess so. I don't know. People just keep dying. What's up with that?
So the second topic you had was market days?
Yeah, Liz had brought up, and I know she's been working on that. So I'm sad that school doesn't get out earlier because track camp is oftentimes the same week as market days, and had we gotten out earlier, it wouldn't be, but it
When do you
is.
start?
The 23rd.
Sarah, do you need to go?
I'll need to go in like about 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, that will be the.
So those dates of market days, were they were corrected on the
Yeah, they were
calendar?
incorrect in that
Yeah,
calendar
we
report.
did correct them in the new.
I know, I saw them, I was so excited, like, all right, it's the, oh, no.
So they're
it
the
isn't.
26th
Yeah.
through 28th,
Yes,
right?
yes, yeah.
All right, let me see.
So typically, Cara helps us with where we'll be for that, but I was just trying to start the discussion of, do people want to volunteer their time
Yeah.
at some point? Do we want to do one day? Do we want to have a representative at each day?
How do we do it? I've always been at track camp, so I've never been able to come down, which will be the same this year. Do we typically have a booth every day?
Well,
Or do you?
Cara put us where there was an art installation.
Yeah.
So we, families would come over and we had name tags that said school board.
Yeah.
And just interacted with the community as they came over to the art installation. So it wasn't a formal booth.
Got it, got
That's
it.
what we did last year.
Yeah.
There has been a formal booth in the past.
Yeah.
So it would be kind of what we might be interested in doing.
I think on the weekends, I don't know how much we'll get the kids coming on that Thursday, but over the weekend, for sure.
Or in the evenings.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something, just if anyone's interested in participating. I'm interested in being there at some time, and I
Yeah.
think Cara can help us, given her work with In Town Concord, of where they're looking to place us.
Yeah.
So,
I would love to participate. I do think having a table is difficult because then you're expected to have things on the table, and I'm just not sure what we could offer to like draw people in. So I'm happy to stand there with a clipboard and talk to people and that sort of thing, though.
and we could certainly have any handouts with us, but not necessarily a table
Yeah.
either.
Yes.
So as we're engaging in conversation, we could hand something out.
Right.
People have more interest.
Yeah.
And when tabling, it's better to be out in front of the table anyway. So maybe, what do other folks think?
No, I loved the chalk last year. I thought that was such a creative way and just to be engaged. And I think there's something to be said for us volunteering and helping other booths instead of having our own place. Just
Yeah,
actually-
that's
love
that's a
that.
nice spin on it, I think, too.
So I'm down for that.
Right.
All right,
It's a
so.
great idea.
I think it might be kind of fun if any of us have like swag, school swag, that we could
Yeah.
wear that, like a
Yeah.
Concord High School
Oh, that's
or
cute.
Runlet or a
I have
elementary
my
school.
cricket. Liz, do you want to make sure it's with me?
your
Swag
gear.
to try to draw attention.
All right.
Do you
that's a
want,
good idea.
do you want us to send out an email to the rest of the board?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Just seeing
Yeah.
who's interested in volunteering, and then also remind them about school shirts and wear different swag, as you called it.
It might draw people to talk to us.
Yeah. Name tags.
Okay, so I don't mind doing that either, because I want to follow up with Cara.
That would
about
actually be
what-
All right,
great.
well, if you do that, then just follow up and give
And then
all
I'll
the
send to
board a
everyone
chance
once
to
Cara-
do it. I
Yeah.
know
Thank you.
they, as I recall last year, when they could be there, they gave you some times.
Yeah.
A couple of hours, whatever, on
Yeah.
Friday. I think it was a lot Friday and Saturday. I think
Mm-hmm.
maybe Thursday. I don't remember now. I'm trying to think from last year. It depended on who could do it, really,
And what the weather's like.
and what the weather's like.
Yeah.
Very unpredictable.
We don't do the farmer's market anymore, do we?
No, we
did
haven't.
We
not
can.
have much.
That was a Jonathan thing.
Yeah, he loved
He
that.
loved the farmer's market.
I think the farmer's market is a great idea. It became challenging when we tried to continue that last year.
Yeah.
I know, at least because I coach sports on Saturday mornings, so it was really hard for me to
Right.
commit there, which,
I think that was the issue, because all of you are doing things on your own
Yes, on
on
Saturday
Saturday
mornings,
mornings
yeah,
with your
that-
kids and teens.
That wasn't the logical time to
It
set up,
just-
yeah.
because you're all, all parents of young kids.
Yeah.
It really, that's what happened, where Jonathan and a couple of, folks who didn't have kids
Right.
were able to do it.
Yeah.
Bob Cotton was a good example, right?
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, Jonathan.
but yes, I mean, any of those visibility,
Right.
I think are wonderful if anyone wants to step up.
Especially when we're
to-
visible in like a regular way, like, there's Saturday morning barb instead of school board barb, like that connection to the city, to citizens, I think is good.
Correct.
So that's something summer things slow down in some ways, speed up in others, but maybe that's something that could be a way to connect over the summer. Let's keep that in our, I need to borrow your pencil. So,
Okay.
But having it, I mean, not that I promote tables either, because it's a big lift, but having a table made it clear that you were there to talk about school board questions or issues that people wanted to, versus if I'm just walking down at the farmer's market, people are less likely to
Yeah.
come up to me and say,
yeah,
well, I
because
have an issue with
they might
this.
think you're there
or-
to buy
right.
veggies, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
That's fair.
right.
And we did have some handouts for you, we had the trifold, which is just real quick information about schools. We put the school calendar, everybody wants to know what the school calendar is. So we gave you some
Yeah.
things that you could put out on the table.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's most helpful is to get Concord TV's name out there to say, hey, you can't attend the meetings, you can watch it on Concord
Right,
TV.
Right.
Right. And if we do a table, now I've flipped on the table because if we do a printout of the QR code where they can just hit it, with anything that we want to link them to, too.
I mean, I'll wear a QR code on my forehead.
If it gets them to
Watch the
click
meeting,
through, yeah.
I put them on my Molly B t-shirts now.
Okay.
QR codes are
Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I motion to adjourn because I'm on my way to the fifth grade
Excellent.
concert. Shout out to Mr.
Will you
Hayes
second
on
it?
his last
Great.
concert.
All those in
Great.
favor?
I
All right.
second that.
Who
Good night, everybody.
seconded? I'm sorry.
I did.
Okay, thank you, Liz.
All right,
Nice.
team. Well done.